Hi, everyone. My name is Kerri Ann DeCindis. I'm the editor-in-chief of Eyecare Business magazine. We are here from the Vision Council Executive Summit in sunny Santa Barbara at the Ritz-Carlton, and I am so happy to be joined by Kim Lear, one of our awesome keynote speakers this morning. Thank you, Kim, for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
We have Kim, who is a generations expert and corporate speaker, and we are going to talk a little bit about generations in the workplace and how leaders and eye care professionals can really hone in on these trends that we're seeing. So given your extensive experience studying generational differences, what are the top trends on your radar in terms of generational shifts in the workplace?
Yeah, there's so many, and so maybe I'll just focus on like one or two of the kind of narratives that are out there that I think are maybe a little bit incorrect. And so one of them is around Gen Z coming into the workforce and having these like there's this narrative out there that like they refuse to come into the workplace and that they don't want that, but the data does all show that the generation that most wants an in-person work experience is Gen Z.
Okay.
And so obviously, you know, they don't want to maybe go back to the 2019 version of work where it's like you're taking PTO to go to a 30-minute dentist appointment. So that policing of time going down, but the importance of those in-person moments, that sense of vitality that it gives you, we have really not found a meaningful way to properly mentor and identify potential and a new generation of talent completely virtually.
Okay.
And they recognize that. Like they say, like, there isn't really a meaningful way for me to stand out in a completely virtual environment. And so I think that is something that the workforce is kind of grappling with, is how do we provide these in-person work experiences that are more immersive, that are more meaningful, and that are more built for those moments of real connection. I think the other kind of narrative that is out there is that young employees are really primarily driven by a sense of purpose. And I know one of your later questions is about AI, so I'll table this a little bit, but in the face of so much technological change happening in the workplace, there's a lot of this fear of becoming obsolete.
Okay.
And so young workers really prioritizing job security, compensation, you know, things like that. And so I think this like overall message of like, as long as you can give them that sense of purpose and meaning, like that's the most potent lever for recruitment.
Okay.
That is not true.
Okay.
And so some of those other aspects, really playing those up in terms of bringing in a new generation of talent.
Awesome. I like that debunking of myths as opposed to like because I feel
there's
like
so many trends.
Yeah,
I mean, that's and I mean, probably the biggest trend right now that I didn't even really address is how many baby boomers are retiring. And so whenever there's a passing of the baton in the leadership positions, it comes with a lot of disruption.
Okay.
You know, changes in how we work and how we view leadership and how we view productive dialogue and all of those things. And so that's a huge one as well. Millennials, you know, leading and managing bigger teams, Gen X moving into the C-suite, all of these demographic shifts in the workplace have these ripple effects. But I would say this idea that young people are really primarily driven by purpose and that young people really refuse to come into an office, I would say those are two things that I hear a lot, and it just does not play out in data. It's just not reflective of reality. And I think that it can lead leaders and organizations to make a series of decisions that end up not working.
Awesome. So kind of to go off of that concept, do you think, speaking of Gen Z, that leaders in the workplace are doing enough to engage this younger generation of workers?
I think people are really trying. I will say that. I do think that there's a lot of empathy around Gen Z and how they had that unceremonious catapult into adulthood because of the pandemic. And so when I talk to leaders, there's less like, oh, these kids, and you know what I mean? And there is more like, I feel bad. Like they were denied a lot of these. I empathize with this. I do want to help. And now I think it's just about providing the right tools so that they can actually help, which I do see a lot of trying.
Okay. That's positive.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And obviously one of the biggest themes that we're seeing, not just at the summit, but in the world and overall, is this, you know, influx and growth of artificial technology. How specifically do you think AI will intersect with these generational differences and these generational trends?
Massively. I mean, one of the ways in which we even decide, like, when does one generation stop and another one start, is it's a whole slew of things, but it's looking at a different political landscape, different economic landscape, new healthcare innovations, new technologies. And so for a long time, people were saying the end of Gen Z and the beginning of Gen Alpha is going to be on that adoption line of artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And so it has a huge impact, because you'll have one generation of, the youngest, there are first graders now who will be able to properly utilize artificial intelligence in tutors, and
Okay.
the way that it'll impact education and how people learn and how people work, and that will be a profound difference. And so I do think that it kind of changes everything. And I think when we look at Gen Z's focus on more security, more stability at work, a higher emphasis on compensation, some of that right now is driven by artificial intelligence and this kind of very unknown backdrop. Because even for young people who are growing up much more immersed in AI than older people, there are still a lot of question marks of, like, whose job does this get rid of first?
Yeah.
And how? And does this look like mass layoffs, or does it look like a shortening?
Or is it going to help? Is it going to be an aid as opposed to?
And it'll be, and the reality is that it'll be both.
Okay.
But I think it's naive to. I think there's, like, these techno optimists who are saying it's only going to be positive, and then I think there's tech nihilists who are like, it's all going to be negative, and neither is true.
Which is good.
Yeah.
So there's preparation that needs to be done, but still more to come on that.
Yes.
I think overall. So one of my last questions for you is, looking at these generational dynamics and leaderships, our audience of eye care professionals, they have a mix, obviously, of generations in their workforce of employees. What would be your key tips for fostering a culture that benefits, both these younger generations and these older generations? I know it may not always be this perfect happy medium, but I feel like there may be some key intel on tapping into that.
I actually think that other industries can have a lot to learn from healthcare, because ophthalmologists, optometrists, doctors in general, they grow up in an educational environment of mentorship and knowledge sharing. Where it's still incredibly competitive, and there's like a cutthroat dynamic. And there's always that joke of, like, nurses eat their young, and so it's not free from generational tension. But when we look at some of the consistencies from every generation, like I talked about on stage today, people really craving that fatigue from rigor, and you get that by being in a helping industry, no matter what.
There's a purpose in it.
Yes, exactly. And so, and it's hard work. I mean, it's very hard work, and it's very rewarding work. And I think those things combined are motivating factors for all people, across generational lines. And in terms of the mentor culture that exists so strongly in healthcare, that is motivating to every generation. Being able to be a mentor, to show that generosity to a new generation, is such a life-giving energy source. And being a young person who gets to be seen as high potential, to have someone kind of pour themselves into you and teach you, that also serves as that real sense of vibrancy. And so I would say that mentorship quality, that coming together, is imperative. And then that combination of that work that matters and work that is very stimulating, because it's challenging. And especially when you think about ophthalmology and the way that the technology in that field has changed so dramatically, so quickly. It requires constant adaptation, constant learning. And I think for the the certain type of mind that goes into that field, that is motivation in it of itself.
And I like how that's kind of blanket for all generations. It's not just specific. I feel like everyone can find value in being in a healthcare field and helping people, whether you're an optician, an optometrist, an ophthalmologist. It's all kind of under that same statement of purpose. So.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kim.
What
is next for you? If our audience wants to learn more.
I write kids these days on Substack, and that's where the newest research always comes out, and always an update on what is new and what's going on and interesting trends. So that would probably be the best place to
I'll
follow
be
the
tuning
work.
in for
Great,
today.
thanks.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Yeah.
Please stay tuned for more from the Vision Council Executive Summit. Thank you.